Okay, audio, that's working. This is all working. Okay. I was gonna try to go back to doing this a bit earlier, but the internet went down in the general area for like 4.5 hours. So kind of restricted my ability to do stuff. But there's not that many other side things. So we're gonna start pretty fast. We'll go into the drive, the self-plug drive thing, for the sake of giving people a few seconds, but also letting people who don't know that uh, videos slash streams is not the only thing I actually do that's quote unquote work. Underneath the PayPal and Patreon links in the description, underneath this stream or any video from the last 2 years, if you go down here, there's a free access drive link that takes you to this Google Drive. This has all of the different graphs and stuff that I maintain and try to keep regularly updated across all different types of data sets, from oil production, demand, consumption by product and everything, natural gas data, metals and mining, electricity, and CO2 emissions, for just for this example to prove that I did actually finally upload the updated graphs of these. So just letting everybody know, for one, that the drive folder with all this data exists, and for two, I did finally upload the updated version of these. I'll start uploading the updated oil consumption by product for each country graphs soon, hopefully. But that's there. Anyways, so yeah, the strait is effectively still closed. The current rate of transit for the last few days has been a grand total of two vessels coming and going each day. And that doesn't mean two oil or natural gas tankers coming and going each day. It just means two vessels. So the strait is closed, while also the blockade on Iran itself remains. So this whole thing is not budging for the moment. And Iran finally said, just gave a shoulder shrug in response, I think, to Trump's shoulder shrug thing, where if you remember last week, he said his infamous quote of, uh, he doesn't really think about it much anymore, and it will work itself out somehow. Iran responded, most likely specifically because of that. Iran made an announcement afterwards with their own shoulder shrug, saying that the U.S. administration currently is too unreliable, and that they're just going to wait for the next one. I can't actually draw the Kappa troll smile thing, so you get the closest you can. I'll just put troll above it and draw a nose here. So they said they're just going to wait for the next one, and thusly the strait is closed per their announcement until January 20th of 2029. Now, by that point, also most of the pipelines will be completed and in place. So the Saudis already have one that enables them to still get 5 million barrels per day out. By 2029, assuming this isn't just trolling or isn't only partially trolling, the second Saudi pipeline will be complete. The Kuwaiti tie-in will probably be close to complete. The second UAE pipeline is going to be done early next year, anyways. 2029, the Qatari tie-in will be pretty close to done, and 2030 is the longest delayed one. That's when the Iraqi Jordan pipeline will be complete. But by 2029, already the Iraq Syria 1 million plus barrels per day pipeline will have been completed. and we already have close to 1 million barrels per day flowing out of Iraq up through Turkey now that both those pipelines are activated. So, in a sense, it all kind of works out, anyways. Since by that time, also, most of the diversionary stuff would be completed. So that would be like the limit of effectiveness, anyways. But also publicly, it serves to kind of, just slap Trump in the face, basically. To which he responded with a Omega level temper tantrum. Let me draw some fangs here. An Omega level temper tantrum, where he said that actually it's the US who decides what happens, and no one's going to do anything until or unless uh, Iran pays the US $300 billion as opposed to the other way around. So almost certainly they knew that would be the response, and that was kind of the point. And the oil market reacted to this by not really. It went up like $5, or sorry, $8 now, up to $83 per barrel. So the market is just entirely detached from reality. Complete. It's a completely manipulated pump and dump scheme at this point. But I mean, the physical reality is that yes, there is effectively nothing passing through the strait at the moment, and has not been really anything passing through the strait since 4 weeks ago when we briefly restarted the war for a couple weeks. Although occasionally Iran has let a few Iraqi or oil tankers going to and from Iraq come and go occasionally, but that's about it. So yeah, that is a thing. That is a situation. That is the current reality. That is again just up in the air. The market doesn't really care about it. The market's just vibing. Everybody is just vibing about everything. The news that the increasing CO2 concentration in the atmosphere is actually also starting to have physiological health effects on us, and that it's gradually then lowering our blood's ability to carry diluted amounts of micronutrients over the course of time, and around 2070, 2080, if the current increase in CO2 levels continues at the present rate, that is, then we would actually reach a critical point to where every human born would have severe health detriments. Everybody's just vibing about that. Everybody's uh, kind of, and by everybody, I don't mean actual people. I mean like those in power and news agencies and everything, because uh, the like low river situations in Europe, the thing I was about to mention, those are getting like 10-minute news blips at most before everything goes back to like the latest controversy about how Dwayne the Rock Johnson is demanding like $50 million for 5 minutes of screen time in the next Fast and Furious movie, where they're going to the moon, apparently, I guess. So that's what I mean by everybody. I don't mean actual people who are actually suffering, because they're the ones actually suffering, and so they're not just vibing with it. But in the phrase of just vibing with it, now that you know what I mean, everyone, the market, everyone's just vibing about the strait being closed until 2029. Everyone's just vibing about the CO2 thing. Everyone's just vibing about the low river levels and power plant shutdowns in Europe. The U.S. is, just vibing about the collapse of the Colorado River system. Nothing actually matters or means anything until the gun is actually like being shoved into your mouth and pointed upwards into your brain, I guess. Let's see, did we get anybody else? No. Uh, if you guys just showed up as part of this wave here, scroll back along the timeline. As always, started looks like 10 minutes ago. So just scroll back, you'll get everything. And apart from that, uh, this new statement of reality, nothing like specific happened around the Middle East to commentate on. Ground combat offensive between the Houthis and the Yemeni government is still ongoing. We're just not seeing that much footage or anything come out of it. Hundreds of thousands of people either have been massacred by now or are still being massacred at this very moment in Sudan in that large displaced people's encampment. But apparently nobody cares. Over in Russia, we had quite a lot of stuff get struck and destroyed over the weekend. Another one of the major ground freight storage and logistics distribution hubs, this time the one in Voronezh, right here. That one was destroyed and burned down. Fire got bigger and looked uh, lovely, apparently, by the time it reached like dawn. So you have these nice orangey dawn light clouds of smoke hovering over the sky, rising from the warehouse as it burned down. Uh, let's see, Tumen, the refinery and processing facility in Tumen was struck again after being struck two times previously. So even further degradation and damage probably took out repair equipment and repair crews as well. Let's see that this is the same one. Okay, the I guess Tobolsk is the specific little mini city where it's located, but it's the Tumen region one. Let's see. Yep, that's still more stuff from Tumen. Also the one in oh no, the also the gas processing plant, the natural gas processing plant, I guess. Portion of it was also hit. Uh, oh yeah, space launch rocket in China exploded. That's not connected to any of the military stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. So uh, IDF is signaling again that it's going to try to start doing stuff in Syria. Blah blah blah. You know, giving speeches about how Syria having its air force again and being a like functional unified country again, as opposed to a failed state in a five-way civil war, is a detrimental security situation, despite the fact that failed states in five-way civil wars uh, fermenting terrorism in all directions because that's what results from that. Uh, being to anyone with a functioning brain, obviously a far worse security detriment situation. But they view a functional, reunified Syria with a functional military, uh, having an air force again, etc., as detrimental because that would uh, mean more organized resistance against the inevitable intended expansion stuff. So, uh, heavily flagging, signaling that they're gonna try to start lighting stuff up in Syria again at some point, like I was saying for a while, that they're inevitably gonna do. The earthquake, uh, Niz, uh, Nizhnekamsk. Listen, Russia and other Slavic languages, you guys have to stop doing this nonsense with like 15 consonants in a row before the next vowel. This person was far away and is filming on a phone, obviously, so can't see too much detail, but you can see the wide wedge tornado like black smoke clouds as things are burning. That is that small town where the refinery is located. They didn't identify the region. They made me go look it up. That is Orenburg. The Orenburg refinery. The Orenburg region is like this one around here, kind of. That was one of, I think, only two or three refineries west of the Urals that actually had, up until now, gone untouched by the relentless oil and gas infrastructure annihilation campaign that started back at the start of July. Well, now, obviously, it is on the list, and it took quite a beating. Tumen again, that's the warehouse. Oh, no, sorry, Orsk is the one in Orenburg. Then where's the Nizhnehamsk? Where is I'm not even going for that. I forgot. Sorry, I misplaced it. I forgot where Niz Nizhnehamsk is. So this is the one in Orenburg. And the one in Nizhnehamsk is somewhere. The small little regional refinery for Khabarovsk, way out in the Far East. Let me make sure. Jump straight to an image thing to skip past Google's AI. Let's make sure. Okay, it is the one I was thinking of. I am correct. It's the one far out there. So this was not a drone strike as far as we know. Russia denies it, but they would anyways. And also, Ukraine said they've not, even their high altitude stratosphere balloon carried and then dropped drone strategy has not been able to reach things that far yet. So this, I guess, is just another case of uh, the refinery deciding to explode of its own accord, which is not the first time that has happened. And that's more stuff during the night from the initial strike moment on the warehouse in Voronezh. So we have quite an array of those by this point. Let's see. Both the Moscow ones were destroyed and burned down. Both the St. Petersburg ones were destroyed and burned down. Let's see. The small, was it the small Belgorod one? I think the small Belgorod one was burned down. Now the large Voronezh one was burned down. The Volgograd one, the Krasnodar one, the Yekaterinburg one has suffered some damage, but did not burn down completely because after all the incompetency seen elsewhere, the Yekaterinburg, I guess, fire brigades or collective fire uh, departments over regional administration or whatever is like actually competent at their job. Let's see, the one in Penza is destroyed. The one in Samara is destroyed. The one in out here, I think, in Perm was destroyed. The one in Tula, the one in Ryazan, the one in Vladimir, and one other one, but I forgot the location. So we're stacking those up. And I think that's about it for the list of stuff that was smashed in drone strikes and whatnot over the weekend there. And then there were a few other things that happened elsewhere around the world that I was probably going to mention, but they're starting to slip from my mind. Uh, None of them, for the most part, were like as important as the primary stuff. Especially not as important as the Strait is closed until 2029 news. Uh, the most of the oil data did finally get properly released today, so I should be able to get everything ready and hopefully do the regular video on that. I don't know, tomorrow or maybe Thursday. We'll see. Was I forgetting though? Whatever it is, it's not coming back to me. All right, I'm gonna chug some water. Give me a second. Anybody who showed up in like the last 5 or 10 minutes, scroll back along the timeline. It looks like we started 20 minutes ago from where I'm speaking right now. I am unfamiliar with what you're referring to, so I might take a look at that later. But the only the different debates I know of are the if everything uh, dead stop brick walled right now, like if all emissions just ceased overnight, would uh, the current CO2 levels around 428 ppm. There is debate over how fast it would go back down if everything dead stopped overnight. The Based on we do have a rough, pretty solid idea based on what we see from the sinking capacity right now. That within the first 30 years or so, it would drop back down to somewhere between 350 and 375. And then over the course of the next 70 years after that, the remaining two-thirds of that oncoming century, again, after a brick wall dead stop moment at least, then it would take the next 70 years after that, it would gradually go back down. It would gradually go back down closer to 300, but would still be in the low 300s. And then the guesstimation for like an actual 280 level is, I think, roughly 3 centuries. And again, that is with everything standing as is. If we continued and rapidly expanded a lot of the currently semi-ongoing reforestation efforts. The two different words you might hear: afforestation versus reforestation. Reforestation is when we do it ourselves, when we go when we go cultivate like tree saplings and stuff and shrubbery and everything, and like start aiding the process and rapidly like helping it speed up. Afforestation is when there's no interference, and the process of forests and other plants like cover re-expanding is just occurring on its own. Like afforestation across a lot of Europe actually is currently occurring along with Japan, uh, especially in Japan, for example, like since the population is now declining so quickly and there's a lot of rapidly abandoned, like smaller towns and villages out in the mountains, A lot of those, like out and up in the mountains, are, you know, the longer they're left there, the more they're kind of just being reclaimed by the surrounding mountain forest. Reforestation, again, is when we do it ourselves. So, like what's happening in my parents' backyard right now, where I live in exile down here close to Charleston, South Carolina, there are quite a number of trees of different species that are still in their very young stages. The oldest ones are like maybe 6 years old. I think the one that's tallest at the moment, that's about 5 feet. But there are 8 trees of different species across the further away from the house parts of the backyard that have just sprouted up on their own and have been growing. Different ones are different ages. I did not like go out and plant those or anything. I'm protecting them to whatever degree I can, but those did spring up on their own and are just growing on their own. So, Max Regia's backyard, for example, is an example of afforestation, whereas the various Amazon aided replanting and reclamation efforts that Brazil is trying to undertake, those would be reforestation. Afforestation is when it's just happening because it will happen if you just walk away and stop like actually like cutting into the forest or interfering with it. It will just respread on its own, just at a slower pace than if you brute force it. Human beings planting a lot of stuff and trying to aid and speed it up is when you refer to it as reforestation. But that was a long tangent and diatribe off from what I was going to say, which is uh, if we increase the rate of those projects and global plant cover from forests to also like reclaimed grassland and shrubland, for example, goes back up, then the rate at which CO2 levels would fall if all emissions just dead stopped at once would obviously accelerate, but also those going up would raise the sink capacity to a point to where basically I think we in total, it's estimated that we over the last 2.5 centuries, we deforested roughly 3 trillion trees worth of forest cover. And based on current land, based on current land distribution, what's being used and still would be desirable to keep in the category of potentially being used, the estimate is the reason it's called the 1 trillion tree initiative is we can reforest up to 1 trillion trees worth of forest cover out of that three without that conflicting with any active human land use. 1 trillion out of that 3 trillion is now just barren or semi-forested land that's like slowly regrowing through natural afforestation that is not like really actively in human use of any kind. It's just land that was deforested. So the reason it's frequently called 1 trillion tree initiative is because 1 trillion is roughly the number we could reforest without interfering with ourselves. And plus 1 trillion trees roughly would get us a net minus for many decades of between 10 and 12 gigatons of CO2. So the net, like if human CO2 emissions like stopped right now at 41, which they actually are stopping right around 41 for a variety of factors. The Iran war and the energy disruptions from that included, obviously, But they were already slowing down drastically over the last 3 years, anyways, or 4 years. But because of all of this over here, you're probably actually going to see this year's emissions when the data releases next year drop, probably like down to 40 or 39 for total over the course of this year. But if you snap your fingers and those 1 trillion trees out of the 3 trillion reappeared right now, uh, that would, mean that our net total addition emissions to the atmosphere would immediately drop to like 30 gigatons per year. And I think the total global carbon sinking system has basically it does have spare capacity beyond just the pre-industrial 280. Like you can, it does have a fluctuation range to where you can have additional carbon going into the atmosphere that it can sink in naturally without too much overload. Uh, that is an area of debate, and the debate is usually that the extra could be anywhere from 5 to 10 gigatons. And obviously, right now, humanity is at 41. So if you chopped us down to like under 10, then the CO2 ppm in the atmosphere currently would stop increasing and would level off. Uh, However, also, if you Thanos snapped the 1 trillion trees out of 3 trillion that would come back into existence, that would then obviously boost that threshold number back upwards. Although the way things compound and work is a bit different. So you would assume naturally that that would mean, oh, it would jump from 5 to 10 up to 15 to 20. No, actually, it would jump up to roughly somewhere between 10 and 13, probably. I think that's the number I remember. But thankfully, as one of the many items of good news, we are leveling off. Over the last 4 years, human emissions went from going up, uh, I think, point 0.9, went up by zero point 0.9 gigatons one year, zero point 0.7 the next, zero point 0.5 over the course of 2024. And over the course of last year, 2025, they only went up by just under zero point 0.3, which put us at a flat 41. So you can kind of see we were already curving off again before all the Iran war and other stuff. So this year, 2026, if none of this had happened, uh, we would probably we would probably have ended up like coming in flat, the same as last year, at like another flat 41, and then probably wobbled around there for a couple of years before tipping over. Now, because of all of this and all the disruptions from this, we are going to start going down a bit earlier. Like I said, over the course of this year, most likely now you're going to see us come in like below 40 at like 39 or something. So that was an extra like 20 minutes of me going off. If you're part of this wave of people that just showed up, you can scroll back along the timeline. I apologize. I don't control YouTube's thing of when it gives you notifications that I started streaming or whatever. Uh, but yeah, I'll scroll back about 33 minutes ago. That's when we started. So apologize to anyone who just showed up. Well, now everybody's leaving. But unless anything else comes up from anybody in chat, then that's probably why did I still have this open? That's probably where I'm going to end it. Now I'm going to get back to writing as I finished the rewrite and revisional overhaul of the first or pilot episode of Dream War, which I'll go post some further segments of on the Patreon as part of the only stuff that's ever behind uh, any form of paywall is like intellectual property-esque stuff, proprietary stuff regarding a fictional story premise, that is. But the data in the Google Drive and everything that, like I've said before, that will remain free forever unless Google itself like seizes it and puts its own paywall in front of it. As apparently YouTube at least is doing that to an extent. Like I've told you guys before, I will not, I will never put mid-roll ads in the middle of a video if the video is less than 12 minutes long. And in a video that, in the event that I post a really long video or something, like if I ever do something again, like I did in the past, where I post like, I don't know, a 40-minute long video, I will not insert myself mid-roll ads more than like once every 12 to 15 minutes. But apparently, even on shorter videos that are not eligible for mid-roll ads, like videos that we'll use this number, for example, are only say 5 minutes and 27 seconds long, YouTube now just puts mid-roll ads in those themselves. And we're past the announcement. I've seen it for myself, watching some shorter videos where 3 minutes in and then 6 minutes in, mid-roll ads show up. So YouTube is just brute forcing that on their own for their own profit. But that's not something I have any control over. Oh yeah, YouTube has always censored links. For To an extent at least. There's like one category of link that can get past it, but I have no idea what it is. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll go right up to 42 minutes, and then that's where it ends this time. So more water and nothing else.